But our next game that we're going to talk about is one that happened a few days ago now, which is France versus Uruguay, which was a hell of a game. Uruguay played so well, and the conversation that it's kind of sparked is how do we get teams like Uruguay more rugby? So we know about the new proposed structures and things that World Rugby want to bring in is being proposed. We've seen the way that the Uruguayan captain was speaking after the game and saying, you guys, you weren't here before we played this game, but we knew that we had this in us and you should have been here respecting us from the day one. It's kind of quite similar to how the Georgian under-20s captain spoke after they played the All Blacks in the under-20s championship this summer and said, we are not tier two, we are here to compete, we are playing against the All Blacks and we are challenging the All Blacks. So I guess, Francisco, again, I saw you put something out on socials about it. For you, how do we get teams like Uruguay and all the other tier twos, Portugal and everyone else at this World Cup, how do we get them playing more rugby?
Well, my plan is quite simple and quite quick. For one, ditch the World League that the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship guys want to do. So the 10 nations, if you want to call it. And the second is a quite simple thing. It's more tours with the T2 nations. It's just quite simple. I was in the stadium talking to Rich Freeman he's a journalist for Japan in the World Cup. He's very well known. The first tweet came out from him. Mine came 10 seconds after it, which was fun. And he said to me, as I was talking to him and saying, well, imagine what would be a tour of the Wales national team going to Portugal and Spain. So touring there, play against the Lobos and play against the Leones. And then we can have a third game against Italy and Portugal, Spain. So it could be a Mediterranean tour. And that would bring a lot of fans to the stadium. And not only the rugby, the ones that are already allocated to rugby, but others. Japan and Italy came to Portugal the last 3 years, and it wasn't full stadium, it was 15,000 people. And Portuguese rugby has at the most 8,000 or 9,000. So we are talking that 50% more came from people who are not accustomed to rugby. So they saw it, received a nice ticket and came to the match and got to see a show. And that's what we want. Wales will win 9 out of 10, sorry. But it's how we want to sell the game, because if we close, and sorry for it can be seen as a rant, but if we close in those 10 nations, I can assure you that in a space of 20 years they will go bankrupt. We will have died by the time, but the others will have gone completely bankrupt, because no one is going to see the same teams play against each other year in, year out. No one. I've seen that happen with basketball when they did the Euroliga some years ago. They tried to close down just with the best sides, and it got to a point of bankruptcy. They had to stop with it and open again, and so on. So rugby should take lessons from FIFA, which is the worst organization to take lessons from, and open and do tours and play play not more games, but enough games with tier two nations. Yeah, you won't get an Irish team to go to New Zealand to play 5 games or 4 games against the All Blacks, or 3 games against All Blacks and 2 with the Maori. No, you go to the Pacific, play 1 game against All Blacks, 1 game against Samoa, 1 game against Fiji, but in Samoa and Fiji. And
yeah,
that's it. It's enough. It's completely enough, because Ireland went to, and I like the tour they played against Maori, All Blacks, and Blues or Chiefs. I don't quite remember.
I believe it was the Chiefs.
The Chiefs, right? Or the Hurricanes, or something like this. So couldn't they have played with Fiji or Samoa or Tonga? The same thing happens here in Europe, and I think it's time for rugby to finally wake up from this hellish nightmare of being elitist and start working towards something that is more global. Because every time we do a World Cup, and we have more nations, you see the impact it has in millions of people that don't have teams in it. So if we go to 24, yeah, maybe we get one or two bigger results, but it will hit more fans, it will hit more kids, and will hit more investment because more companies want to jump in. No one is going to invest in a team that is not going to qualify or will have a hard path to qualifying. The era of easy money from corporations and big companies is over. Nowadays they are worse than ever. So if you want to get their money, you have to show something. So this is my plan. It's quite easy. There's no need for the new Six Nations. No, maybe the Rugby Championship should get bigger because it's stale already. Fiji and Japan should go in. So Six Nations in the Pacific. And I could care less with the Six Nations. It's a private tournament. It's over, done. We can do a European Championship each 2 years if you want, or 3 years. But there's already the Rugby Europe Championship, and you want me to be honest, we don't need the Six Nations. We just need the fans of the Six Nations to watch our tournament and enjoy it. That's it. Just click everything. Rugby Europe is the best organization to work for and see the games because every match is streamed online. What else you want? So
Yeah, well, it's difficult to argue with any of that. I guess something you touched on there. I'll get your thoughts on this, Ender. You know, you've watched Ireland put 80 points on Romania this week, just gone, or last week rather. Then we also saw South Africa put big points on Romania as well, and also the All Blacks put 70 past Namibia. I guess, Ender, from your point of view, what would you say to people who say we don't want to see those kind of games?
It's a really difficult question. Like, what do you say? Like, that was my, like, when watching that Irish game as an Irish fan, I took no, like, it was, like, I was actually probably more excited about the beginning of that game when Romania scored within a couple of minutes than I was for any of the Irish scores. And it might sound strange coming from an Irish fan, but I don't want to see games that are that one-sided. I don't think anybody does. But the cynic in me also just sees would question the value of that game and that kind of scoreline. And this is rugby's biggest brand. It's the biggest occasion. And we don't want to see 80 points plus 70 points plus being put on teams because it just doesn't do anything to grow the game or to, yeah, it just that one for me, the Irish game. And then, yeah, when we saw, was it 12 minutes, within 12 minutes, South Africa had the bonus point secured against Romania. Like that makes it very tough. And we all know why Romania got in at the end, but it does show you how far, certain nations need to come. But I don't know what the solution is to that. Like I know Francisco's touched on what we can do, and I think that's valid. But this probably brings up, and I know we have an agenda today and everything, but the thing that I always think about when these debates come up is just the thought of expanding the World Cup from 20 teams to 24 after seeing some of the results. And if you look at previous World Cups as well, like, we're used to this now, and I don't think it's a good thing. And if we do introduce more teams, are we going to see more of those? Now, maybe the counter to that is that, look, it's still good. Like, Romania are going to be better for it, you could argue, because they're getting that exposure, and they're obviously they're going to generate some income for being in the World Cup and all of that, and it's growing the game in Romania, hopefully. But I can't see how those score lines are good for the game or good for growing the sport. But yeah, interested to get your thoughts on this, Francisco. Like, is it tough for you watching that, or do you kind of just see it as a necessity at this stage? Like, it's tough to watch, but it's what we need to go through until these teams are developed and get to that level.
If we will look just only for Romania, we have a problem. But then you zoom out, and you have Chile, Uruguay, Portugal, Georgia. Japan, I wouldn't consider it a T2 nation. It's a T1 for me at this point. They need to get to the Rugby Championship, but that's another conversation. And you have them doing good scores against other teams. Namibia and Romania have are problems, and Namibia problem, for example, is different. I think it's the lack of games they have. in the Rugby World Cup cycle. So the fault is not of the Springboks or the South Africa, is from the African Rugby Committee, which should work better. But also the nations from Europe and South America and Pacific seem to not have any interest in them, which should be otherwise. Romania's problem is elsewhere. Until 2023, they almost won against Argentina. They almost won against Italy. And I'm forgetting, they won against Samoa or Tonga. They had very good games against T2, T1 or powerful T2 sides. 2023, and because I'm doing interviews with some of players, I don't want to open everything up, but something broke inside. I don't know if the players don't trust the head coach. I hope they are not falling for this, because it's the worst thing you can do in a World Cup. If there was, the preparation for the World Cup was bad, because sometimes the plan could be nice or incredible on paper, but when you put on the practical side of things, it just doesn't work it. And I don't know. I think Romania, people shouldn't take it like it will be forever like this, because it won't for the next 4 years. After it, I don't know. Romania has a problem at the moment. It's a country that is not poor, but does have very complicated difficulties money wise. All sports in Romania are on the verge of bankruptcy or having intense problems. Even football, which was the most known sports from them, of wrestling sports, are falling like crazy. So the situation is normal, and I think Romania problem lies elsewhere. They are not having enough kids coming through the gaps and going to the national side. So this team of Romania, I think they can still go to the next World Cup, but their problems lie in many places. And I think the Andy Robinson situation, I'm not saying if he was sacked or he resigned, I just don't know, and I don't want to go inside that conversation, was the worst type of decision ever, even if Van Cotter came in to help. 2 months to work with a team, it's not enough. But I understand your point, but I will be careful saying that we are worried with Romania. You should be, but it isn't now the normal practice of the T2 sides, because you have the other ones doing well. Georgia could have won against Australia, because that second half, if Niniashvili didn't do that pop pass he did to Pooh, I believe Georgia would have won that game, because that was the moment that sealed the match. If he stayed with the ball or passed it before, I think Georgia would have scored a try and almost equalized it. And but it is what it is. Fiji almost won against Wales. Portugal was very close to doing an upset. Uruguay was very close to doing an upset against the home side at the point that Galtier is putting his best team to play against Namibia, like some sort of.
Saw that today. Yeah.
So when you see this, it's. I am from the time, and you two also, that the World Cups, when they played against T2 sides, they changed the 15 players and even the bench. And now it's not like that. Ireland and Springboks against Romania played with very good sides. They didn't let them have a chance, because you can't let these guys have a chance. Look, Portugal. If everyone now doesn't know what to expect from Portugal, and if Georgia wins against Portugal, I think Wales and Fiji will start doubting what can we expect from these guys, because something is changing.
Yeah. I think for me, there needs to be someone in the Soccer World Rugby looking at these 17, 80 points and going, this is bad for our tournaments. We need to make sure that next time when these teams turn up, that they don't get these scorelines put on them. And then, so what do we need to do as a sport to ensure that doesn't happen? And that's what I'd like to be seeing. So